night in all your might and glory vanished from the sky. It's just another story. This man-made life. They tell of how you fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. And my guest today is Me Sah. She's a spiritual medium who believes that we can make a change in 2012. And hello, Me Sah. How are you, dear?
I'm wonderful, Clayton. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I mean, I'm just having a great time in Texas, walking around in shorts today, you know. Fortunately, I just... Yeah, it's great weather here. It woke up this morning, it was kind of foggy, so...
Oh, well, we're cold and rainy. We need the rain, but I'm bundled up in a sweatshirt, and I'm still cold.
Yeah, I stayed up there just a little bit north of Taos for a while. But
yeah.
You had, when I spoke to you earlier, you had some information that you wanted to impart.
I have a lot of information.
Where are you getting your information? Is this you're highlighted here as a spiritual medium? Tell me what that.
Right.
Tell my audience. What is that? What do you do? What's going on, Ren? I just lost your picture. There you are. Okay.
Oh, okay. Spiritual medium is not exactly the correct term for what I do, but because it's kind of, it's more commonly understood, I use that. The process that I use is not a psychic process. For many years, I've been following a spiritual path. I've done a lot of different kinds of practices. I've had a lot of different teachers. And at some point along the way, I was able to develop what I call a direct connection with spirit, with the realms of the divine, with the Christ. And so what I do basically is get information from that level. Now I also get information from other people or what's going on in the world, but I always try to remember to check it out with what I call quote-unquote spirit. And that's a little different than a psychic process. A psychic process looks more into what's called the astral realm, which is the dimension that takes in the physical. It goes above the physical but also below the physical, but it's kind of a mess. It's not any better or clearer than what we have here in the physical. To get into the higher energies, you have to get up into the etheric realm, which is the place where you can meet spirit, the spiritual beings, the ascended masters, the angels, those beings that are at that level of Christ consciousness. They can lower their vibrations down to that level. We raise our vibrations up to that level, and we meet them at that level. In the astral, there's a lot of imposter energies, what I call imposter energies, that will give us all kinds of information, but not necessarily good information. It's kind of like what we get down here in the physical. You can't tell the players without the program. So
that's kind of, and I was just at a Bible study last night, and they were talking about the Bible, Ezekiel, and talking about the visions that he had, and they made the statement that God was a spirit, you know, and that's I can certainly envision God being what holds the atoms together better than I can, you know, picture Charlton Heston on a cloud.
Yeah, that's an image, isn't it? God is a spirit. There's only one energy, and that's God, and that's in everything. And
in us, right? I mean, that's, and Jesus told us that you can do what I do and more.
That's right, because he came to really to show us the process we will go through to get where he is. He never said, I am the only Son of God. He said, when you're looking at the Father, you're looking at me because I am one with the Father. My consciousness is one with that energy that is everything. And what I do, you'll do. In fact, you'll do even more. So he really came to show us what that looks like, what that is, and what to do to get there. And the problem was the people who were hearing him didn't have the same level of consciousness to understand really what he was saying. So things got kind of messed up and confused along the way, which generally always happens when we get a great teacher. Jesus was the highest soul to ever be incarnated on the planet. And he is now in the ascended realms. He's alive and well. We know that. We can have a personal experience with Jesus Christ. We can have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And he is at that level of Christ consciousness. And there are other beings that have reached that level of Christ consciousness. None of them have really been at that level when they were on the earth that Jesus was able to attain and hold in his physical body. By the way, I want to say, for those of you who know about Greg Braden, who does some quite wonderful work, he has a book out called The God Code. And they determined that in every cell of every living thing, there is a statement that says, God in the body forever. Which is saying that in every living cell is God energy. It's the God energy that allows life to exist as we know it on the planet. It's in everything.
Yes, I've listened to Braden. He's a neighbor of yours, I believe.
Yeah, he's up in Taos, I think, or he was last time I heard. So was several other of the people that are doing that kind of work. They seem to like Taos a lot.
Matter of fact, you may be getting another resident to New Mexico. I spoke with Sheriff Mack. He would take the job of under sheriff in Lincoln County if the man he's backing goes along with it. He was on my show yesterday, so some really good information.
Oh, that's awesome. That's beautiful down there in Lincoln County.
And you know what he's talking about? He's got there's a matter of fact, this weekend there's a convention, it's up on my website too, of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Association, and that's going to be up in Vegas. And I would like to, get as much support and interest in that, because it's got to come down to the counties here. How do you fight evil without becoming evil? It's you start growing things, you start making things, you start creating things, you start producing, using what you got in your state, and you start talking to people in your state. If we don't start communicating with each other, really communicating, what's going on like the internet a lot, you get these what they call trolls, and you just get stupid people that got no solutions, nothing happening, and
right.
They get a voice because nobody's saying, sit down, shut up, listen, this is the truth, in my opinion here. I lived in Miami for years, did real well in business in Miami, but I didn't know any of my neighbors.
Right. Right.
What are the answers that we have? What do you see? What do you see coming? I mean, you're accessing the Akashic records, and you're accessing possibly future events too on the levels that you're talking about here, I would assume.
Future events are tricky because there's so many possibilities, and it depends on what we as mankind put out there. When you consider that we have God in us, we're putting energy out all the time that is a creative force. So depending on what we're putting out there, things can shift and change. Now, we're definitely going to have a lot of transition. There's no doubt about that. how bad it gets, there's still some wiggle room for that to still be determined. So it's really, we have the power to change things. We're in this tremendous transition period that's going to last. It's not going to just all of a sudden at December 21st, 2012 hit. We've been in it for a while. We're going to be in it for many, 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 many years. And as to what that's going to look like or how bad or good that might get, we're not sure yet. And it's going to be up to each one of us. And it's going to depend on our individual actions, our individual thoughts. We need to get out of our head and into our heart and open up that heart space and allow, instead of stop trying to control everything, to just live in our heart space. When we're living in our heart space, we're not going to do anything that's violent or that's going to provide unfortunate circumstances for anybody else, because we're going to be connecting heart to heart, which means that compassionate part of us is going to be speaking to each other all the time. And so we need to get into that heart space. And we need to also, if I could for a minute, we talk about sustainability, we talk about growing our own food, living in communities, having our own kind of, political system happening, and I agree totally with all of that. We also need to be learning about energy and how to use energy to stay healthy and how to use energy to heal. Because what's going to happen if the whole system collapses and people can't go to the pharmacy to get the pills they need for the conditions they've got or that they feel they need?
That might be the best thing for them. I mean, the sickest people that I know take the most pills. And they can't quite put it together that I don't get sick and I don't take any pills, any vaccines, nothing. Don't take nothing. And I don't have to see a doctor. I mean, the doctors just don't make any money if you're healthy. Now, it's the reason I was smiling about what Me Sah just said is that I've already booked up for the next week, people that are going to be talking about the energy your cell phones put out, the energy that the smart meters put out, the ways Chris Key will be back on my show on a regular basis, because he's got the bands that you can put on your wrist that negate the cell phone energy. The smart meters, lady that's been on the smart meters on my show about the smart meter says these are deadly. I mean, they are basically, energizing, putting negative energy into your whole environment. So,
yeah,
we're and one other thing on my website, I've got the lady you can call if you get burned. You can call a number and prevent blistering, help remove the pain, and it's all energy. It's all subliminal. It's all in your thought processes. If they can interrupt the whole pain thing, if you can interrupt that whole pain process in your body and your mind by positive reinforcement, and it's worked with 3-year-olds, you can heal yourself. I mean, come on, isn't that what they tell us the Bible said?
Well, that's absolutely right. And there's even ways to heal post-traumatic stress syndrome without drugs. And,
we've got that too. And by the way, the whole thing about soldiers committed suicide, just did a show on that about 2 days ago. Folks, you need to understand how important this stuff is. We've got more of my brothers that killed themselves after they got home to America than died in Vietnam from suicide. And there's a simple thing that you can take, right? You can go down to the health food store and get some lithium orotate, totally free of negative side effects and toxicity. and you got it. It starts eliminating suicides.
Well, lithium is a substance that will help bring people out of depression.
Yes.
But there's energy techniques that will move that energy that is involved in the depression, that's causing the depression, out of the person's energy field. Then you don't need to be taking anything. It's simple. The problem is getting people to understand that it's there and getting them to try it. I have been trying to get present to vets with PTSD. I've been trying to get together a healing group free of charge, but I can't get anybody interested. They get very identified with what happened to them, and they get very stuck in the energy. And so the lithium is great, but what happens if things fall apart and the health food stores can't get the lithium? What happens if it's not available? Then you've got to have ways and means to work on a different level where you don't need any kind of substance to help with this. Now, I'm not telling anybody to stop taking their medication, because the medications that they are given through the pharmaceutical companies are extremely powerful, and you can't just stop cold turkey. You need help to get off those medications. But I am saying there's ways to work with the energy that are very simple, extremely effective. They're doing a lot of research about it, and it's helping people totally move away energetically from the trauma that they've been carrying. And this can work not only for vets, but for anybody that has had any kind of trauma that they're still carrying in their energy field. It's very quick, it's very simple. You can heal physical problems with it, you can heal emotional problems with it. It's out there. But to get people to be willing to give it a shot and to try it, that's what's difficult. You'd be amazed at the people that are suffering, but they will not accept something different that may change things. And part of that is because the identification with suffering. Oh, I have this or this or this, or oh, I have this or this. We start seeing ourselves as our suffering. And then we're not open to a change and to healing.
You know, my mother and grandmother were drug addicts, and I didn't know that. I thought it was normal to go to a doctor every week.
Yeah.
And I really didn't understand what was being done to them until I took one of my grandmother's sleeping pills, you know. Whew! Granny, wow. I thought you were just old and feeble, you know. I didn't know why you were stumbling around. and
yeah, that's stuff.
They couldn't live without it. Now somebody on my chat room says, how do you stay positive when the genocidal elite are killing us off through medical? Well, you know what? I'll turn that over to you, but tell me a point in time in history when it's been easy to be free. I mean, come on. It doesn't exist.
Well,
so, but how would you answer that? Yes, they are trying to kill us off. Yes, the aluminum they're spraying out of the airplanes, yes, that's not good for you. The fluoride's not good for you. What else?
That's right.
So
we have to have ways to deal with, you know, if we're taking in aluminum, which is a poisonous substance, then aluminum also has energy forms in other dimensions. So we need to be able to work on those other dimensions, and when we work on those other dimensions and get that energy cleaned up, it won't be able to stay in the physical body. Okay? So when we start dealing with knowing that the real cause, if you come down with a disease, Clay, then that disease has its own form in another dimension. Now you can take medication to control the symptoms of that disease, but as long as you are carrying that form of that disease on this inner dimension, that disease can come back, or it can morph to something else and it can come back. So a real healing has to be at that level, in those spiritual levels, those other dimensions, to get rid of that energy form. If that energy form leaves your energy body, then the symptoms are going to go, and it's not going to come back. There's a secret to that concerning addiction, concerning disease, concerning what we take into our body, and it's very, very important. And it's, you know, it can be called a demon of alcohol, a demon of drugs, whatever. They're dark energies, okay? And when whatever it is lives in us, it is sucking up our light energy.
I mean, what you're describing seems to be a basis for vampire legends.
Yeah.
We've got people out there that literally are energy vampires. They try to suck off your productivity. They try to suck off your money. They're predators. They're predators, aren't they?
Well, they are. And there's people that, have you ever been around somebody for a period of time, and when you leave them, you're just tired? You just get tired, physically tired being around them? And it's because they're somehow tapping into your energy field and pulling energy from that. They're feeding off of you in an energetic way. And it's psychic vampirism. That it really is. Those are good people to stay away from.
Now, what you're talking about too, I've studied religions, I've studied magic, and I don't see much difference between the two, except the people that study magic are a little bit more organized and control their thoughts a little bit better than the Christians that are praying for God to drop a Cadillac on them, you know?
Uh-huh.
And we kind of had this discussion in the in Bible study the last night, and I kind of freaked the pastors out because I said, look, the shamans, the witch doctors, whatever are out there, they were studying and they were relaying the messages from the deity, the Great Spirit, whether they were in India, in America, or in Australia. They're all tapping into the same thing that the churches are tapping into, or the priests are tapping into and using against you, trying to substitute and say, you need us to tell you what God meant.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a direct connection here, and I did an experiment once. I took a little bit of hair out of a brush of my roommate. Her name was Paula, and she was out driving people back and forth to the airport. And I was sitting in my apartment, and I said, I made a little voodoo doll, put her hair on it, and in front of a room of people, I just stared at it for a while and said, call me, Paula, call me. 5 minutes later, the phone rang.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
What are you doing? Why are you calling me? What are you doing? Well, I'm driving some people to the airport. I just thought I should call you. Well, everything's all right here. Thank you very much. But I realized that I had actually gone down to the DNA level. Now, our DNA is a complex code given us by God, structured by God. And we got access to each other through that. Now, if you want to use that, to do something bad, well, you're tampering with something, and it's got really negative results for you. I certainly believe that and hope that. What do you think?
I believe that. I absolutely believe that. Because what we put out comes back to us. And the Bible says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it'll return to you, tenfold." So there is what's called white magic, and there's what's called black magic. And, black magic is for egotistical, selfish ends, and white magic is to help. And there's a lot of the training actually, and the information that people that study these things go through is the same. And then at some point there's a diversion, and there's a left-handed path, so-called, which is the black magic, doing things for selfish motivations, and white magic, the right-handed path, which is doing things for the betterment of mankind, the betterment of the world. But it is the same understanding. Quantum physics is calling it now quantum entanglement, meaning that we are all connected. Everything in creation has a connection. And I was listening to a DVD. I was watching a DVD the other day, and they were talking about, and this experiment has been done more than once. They would get 1 million children singing at the same time, and when that happened, it was affecting the sunspots on the sun. Now that's pretty wild, but that was scientifically done and scientifically proven. So there is a connection between all of life. So yes, you can send a message to your friend, call me, call me, call me, because there is a entanglement there. That friend will receive the message on some level. Now whether that message is total subconscious or whether there becomes more of a consciousness of, oh, I need to call Clayton, that depends on the psyche of the person. But the connection is all there. We're always talking to each other at that level of DNA all of the time. All of life is doing that all at the same time. So what that amounts to then is the realization that what I do affects you, affects everybody you know, affects everybody I know, affects the planet. When you think about that, it's a wonder we ever get anything done sometimes, because we're all doing so many different things. But again, in that heart space, if we're living in that heart space, which is that point of God in us, which is pure love. It's just pure being, pure love. We're not going to be creating anything that's going to be destructive or that's going to be harmful. And we'll start creating energies that are going to be helpful and uplifting and validating, and people coming together and relating to each other as not our personalities, but here's another living being that has the same God in them that I have in me. And that, there's that saying of namaste, which the Indians always say, they put their hands.
Let me ask you this. Excuse me for interrupting, but how did we get to the point, hey, my religion's better than your religion, my God's better than your God? Come on, guys. If you're omniscient and omnipotent, doesn't matter what name they call you, depending on what neighborhood they're from.